See, that's
I don't know if Rebecca's going to be present or not. I'm going to try. Right now I'm working on doing a presentation to law enforcement regarding pretty substantial changes in the law that are becoming effective on Monday, because I'm increasing reports of lack of coordination and training as to some of these substantive changes. And so I did finally make contact with the undersheriff, who readily agreed and asked me to put on some sort of training. So it's obviously a priority right now. So I spent most of the last day or two preparing for that. And so the idea is to have that probably on Thursday afternoon and again on Friday, maybe on Sunday and Monday too. There's substantial changes as to the ability to use force by law enforcement. The ability to pursue vehicles is substantially curtailed. There's quite a few changes becoming.
Is it foot too, or just vehicles?
Well, pursuing vehicles, there's specific provisions on pursuing vehicles. Normally you got, it's pretty, if they're advised, you can stop someone in infraction and they take off, you can chase them. It's agency by agency and as their policies as when to terminate those chases, what risks to take on pursuing those chases. But that's no longer the case. You can only pursue a fleeing vehicle if you have probable cause of commission of a Class A felony or sex offense, or that they're under the influence, which is hard to do when you haven't had actually that contact with them. So
pretty much anybody can just.
The default is going to have to let them go. The use of force is not lawful commencing Monday unless you have probable cause to make an arrest. So you cannot do it for controlling the scene. You cannot do it unless you actually. The current standard is more equivalent to a reasonable suspicion. What are you doing here? 3 in the morning in a parking lot with a bunch of teenagers. If they take off running, you can stop them and see what's going on. That's not going to be the case at all by any means. And so that particular amendment to require basically the formation of public cause before any force can be used will.
What's the definition of force?
Putting your hands on someone. And so I mean, that's the loose definition, but that really is really interfering with someone's liberty interests. So that really, Washington has a very broad stance on privacy and liberty interests. So that's going to be issued. There are several departments that have issued statements indicating to their constituents that they will be abandoning most community caretaking functions because you cannot, if you encounter a situation where someone's acting funny at a store or someone's on your property and being belligerent, there's very little law enforcement can lawfully do starting on Monday at that point. So why expose them? It becomes an issue of how much.
So if I have trespass, so if I have somebody on my deck at 3 o'clock in the morning, if I wake up and look out there and there's somebody there and I call 911 to have an officer respond.
Well, there's still the use of force. It can be authorized to effectuate the arrest. So if there's possibility that there have been there probable cause that there have been trespassing, there is the opportunity to pursue the use of force once a checklist of techniques have been used prior to utilization of that force. So utilizing de-escalation techniques, talking, things like that. And then there's separate standards for the utilization of lethal force, which are substantially more limited.
As they should.
And then also some of the effects that will most likely not affect this year's collective bargaining agreement, but will affect future agreements on some of the grievance procedures that are going to be changed. The state is been authorized and is moving forward with implementation of a state body to oversee and basically audit and review disciplinary process of local agencies, and that there has to be compliance with that. Complaints can no longer be private. Disciplinary records will now be available to the public through a searchable database to be maintained by the governor's office. And he's vested with the authority to set up a commission to basically audit the use of lawful force, specifically be audited by the state auditor. There's specific requirements in addition to existing requirements on the need for independent investigation of the utilization of lethal force will now basically expand to use of force issues that the county needs to work on compliance with. So there's a multitude of issues.
So your fear is that we're approaching lawlessness because we put the handcuffs on.
Well, I try not to travel in fear, but and then as on top of that is all of the Blake response bill. Many of those provisions are currently effective that require law enforcement to offer referrals or diversions on the first 2 encounters. There is no state database. There will be no state database to track individuals and how many opportunities for referrals that they've received. There's 3 tiers of referrals. We don't have the facilities to satisfy the first and second, which is basically taking them to a rehab center because we don't have one. And I've gotten no headway or progress with comprehensive. It's going to have to be a discussion the board's going to have to start thinking about because right now we contract them with most of our behavioral health issues and substance abuse issues. We moved that out of the health department several years ago. I think 6 years ago, Dave, you would know better, and contracted with comprehensive. And so their non-responsiveness on these issues, and then their refusal to participate in the multidisciplinary team for child abuse and neglect investigations that restarted last year. We've had about 6 months of successful meetings on formulating the policies and the cooperation utilization of the Children's Advocacy Center in Hood River, now known as Safe Space. So there's other issues altogether, but so there's a lot coming down the chute. So yeah, it's particularly unfortunate. I think the sheriff in Klickitat County issued a pretty eloquent letter talking about his concerns related to juveniles because there is no differentiation in the law as to the requirement for the referral. So you get a 13-year-old with a bag of meth or heroin, they have to be offered multiple attempts at referrals to rehabilitation services with no requirement. Charges cannot be brought until those 2 referrals have been made and documented. Under the current statutes, since this has been reclassified as a simple misdemeanor, the lowest level of criminal activity, the juveniles are required to have mandatory diversions before they can be charges can be filed. So you're looking at 3 to 4 times a juvenile will have in their possession controlled substances. A particular concern, of course, would be heroin, methamphetamine, many of the prescription pills that they get from grandparents, and worst case scenario, they have a cancer, someone battling cancer in their family, and they steal their opiates, and pretty powerful opiates. So that's very frustrating.
Can you still call their parents though?
So that's going to be on January 1st, 2022. One of the new laws that will take effect is that you cannot question a juvenile unless there's reason to believe their imminent safety is at threat. You have to.
Would that meet the standard if you have a bag of meth?
Not likely, no.
Has anybody never been a parent?
So they would you have to provide them with access to.
That would meet my standard as a parent.
You have to provide them with access to an attorney before you can question them. And so that supposedly the Office of Public Defense on a statewide level is setting up some sort of 800 system that officers will basically hand the phone to the juvenile to call and speak to an attorney. The mechanism hasn't been quite worked out yet, but so that's effective January 1st, that there can be no interrogation of juveniles without they cannot waive those rights until they've had that consultation with an attorney, and the attorney can authorize cannot authorize further consultation or questioning. So unless there's an imminent threat to themselves, usually through a violent offense, or there's suspicion that they're involved in human trafficking. So kids are off limits.
So we literally are in a sense of lawlessness when it comes to kids. We can't chase them.
Well, it's redefining what's unlawful, I guess, is how it boils down to. Right.
You can't get in front of the situation, become the after they become a habitual offender anymore.
And so the Blake response, the reclassifying as a misdemeanor, that does sunset in 2023. Without any action, there will be no penalty. And again, it is a simple misdemeanor. The state lab has made it abundantly clear they're not going to be spending a lot of resources testing substances for a misdemeanor.
Next time I say, is there anything else we should know? Tell me.
Yeah, tell me, We started with some
But hey, the
good
good
news
news, he
stuff.
saved us $1,300 on our car insurance.
No, it was $1,400.
1,434, I believe.
Yeah.
And every penny.
Thanks for circling us back to some positive,
And
something positive.
I will attend on, at 8 o'clock on Zoom on Thursday.
you'll be on
Yeah,
that.
I will.
Great,
So as long as you can, that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okie dokie.
I think that's enough.
I think that's.
Get out.
That's rude.
$134.
Leave your $1,400 at the door, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you all.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I would
No.
gladly make a motion
I have
to
a-
listen to
Oh.
Dan.
Yes.
Yeah.
That does take a motion.
Jake ran down the hall when I wanted permission from you gentlemen to get with Rob and form a county childcare committee of county employees, workers / whatever to think about facilitating what it would take to do our own
For our county employees.
for our county employees.
Are you front running that? I mean, you are on the
Yes,
childcare committee.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
are the
I-
town.
And as long as Rob wants to,
Oh.
and other people want to be involved.
Some people are definitely listening.
I was gonna say, we gotta hurry up and make the decision before he walks in the
Leave
door.
it locked next time.
It is.
No, I am fully, I will go there. I will sit on that. I'm sure Rob will help.
Okay.
Between the two of us, and if you guys have
Some brainstorm.
any individuals you wouldn't mind sitting on there, but
Why don't you just go hire the lady who says she's willing to do it,
I'm going to.
find a place and start a business?
Oh, for
and-
myself?
Yeah.
Because it's a lost leader without,
Hey, I read the
ongoing
report.
ongoing yearly subsidies. It'll never make it. So if we sit here and wait for them to try, yes, I got it on the Golden Dale Reds list, so Wasatch or Wagap's gonna be making a presentation. Maybe the feds want to throw a bunch of money around. I don't want to quit trying these other options, but I think we need to plan for the future. And
As if
grab
we're gonna
Larissa, who
solve it
is sitting
ourselves.
here, that's got that knowledge.
I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be a license thing. You could just have somebody talking to locals to front the money to get a spot. There's some open spots around town. And start the darn thing and do it as a private thing, not licensed.
So you're encouraging unlawful activity?
I think it's a friends and family thing, right?
Two centers in the Dalles have been bankrupt over the years, and the only one that's maintained is the MCMC, and they bought a house, they have it fully staffed, and they subsidize it heavily for their employees.
Well, and that's what we need
That's
to,
only for employees.
we
only
need
for
to look at the data and draw the data to find out from our study on what the staff's gonna, that's the wrong one, but anyway, how many staff we would need, how many kids we could have, what would we essentially charge, how subsidized would it be, so that we could actually make a informed decision on a yes or a no.
Could we even do it in-house? Are there any other counties or anywhere that's done it? I mean, I would think the
Good
private.
question.
I would think the private sector would be like, what are you doing?
Right.
The one grant that I had lead forward you
Good
does
question. I don't know.
include grant money to government agencies like us that want to do our own.
I will send an email to the
Gotta
HR
do it.
listserv for the state. All the
That's what I
counties
said,
are
we
on
need
there.
to do our own research. We might find answers, but
I'm fine with you want to do it and.
I don't
brainstorm.
want to drop a bunch of time or effort if I guess I would say I would like, I don't want a yes that we're doing it or a no that we're doing it, that at least you're open to the idea. If you think it's a waste of time, tell me now.
I'm open.
Right.
I'm open to
I'm
the
open to
idea.
the idea.
I'm open to
I think part of the challenge is everybody's trying to make whatever it is work with that building
And it doesn't
And
necessarily.
it doesn't necessarily have, it's just something the county said, here's an opportunity. and-
We know we're gonna have a surplus building.
I'm surprised that, none of the churches have turned,
It's a lost leader.
Yeah,
Unless you're
There was
getting-
one program that tried to expand. They're at a church and they have an after-school program, but it got cost prohibitive to renovate the church to meet all the square foot
Unless
requirements.
you've got guaranteed state funding coming every year, guaranteed county funding, or guaranteed donations of the church. You have issues, and that's not counting, not politically correct, but where we live, if you just let anybody and everybody in, you're gonna have to hire a full-time person just doing credit reports and filing collections. So, yeah, it's not because of the laws that are currently there, it's just not a viable entity, and nobody with.
Larissa is motivated.
To do it.
Larissa is motivated.
Right, and as I said, I would love her on this team to help figure out what we could charge, what the cost would be, what would we have to subsidize every year, so we know. Are we talking 10%, 20%? What grants we might be able to get a hold of, how many people would be able to apply for that, subsidies from the state?
I'm really surprised KVH hasn't. And they're on the committee, but I mean, as far as trying to do their own thing, because they have 24-hour shifts, 7 days a week. Shift work's tough for childcare, like our
I think
dispatch.
they're waiting for us, and then they can jump on our boat.
my personal thought would be is we partner with them and let one lead and the other one provide.
Support.
Because of all the entities, I think we're the two that have, schools aren't 24 hours, 7 days a week. PED's not, well, they might be, their line folks might be, but KVH and the county do have similar scheduling, I think.
The problem I think we're gonna have is when we get into the 12-hour shift, covering for employees with 12-hour shifts, then you gotta have somebody there at 5:30, and
Right.
you can't have a daycare teacher go home until 7. You're gonna run into some
Yep. It's pretty much why they don't pay for the
employee number issues. So anyway, all right, if I have your permission, we move forward with that. With that, I'll make the motion that we adjourn the meeting until the Thursday workshop on the 22nd at 8 o'clock.
Okay, a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting until 8 o'clock on Thursday for scheduled workshops. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned